The Browns didn't ease Shedeur Sanders into a leadership role. They cleared the deck for him. The trade that sent Joe Flacco to the Bengals wasn't just a quarterback move. It was a power play. After weeks of internal resistance, ownership stepped in and overruled the coaching staff, forcing Sanders into the spotlight before many inside the building felt he was ready. Now, the pressure isn't just on Sanders to perform. It's on an entire organization to hold together after burning the safety net. With this trade, the Browns are now defined by risk. The video unpacks how Shedeur's rise, while exciting.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Comes at the expense of cohesion, credibility, and continuity. What started as a personnel decision has spiraled into a full-blown shift in how Cleveland does business. The coaching staff has lost autonomy. The veterans have lost trust. And the fans, while energized, are watching every snap with a weight of expectation. This is more than a new era. It's a test of whether the Browns can survive their own ambition. The Cleveland Browns just traded Joe Flacco to the Cincinnati Bengals. That's not just a personnel decision, it's a line in the sand. A message from ownership to the entire building, from the locker room to the coaching staff to the fan base. We're in charge now, and we're doing this our way. The move signals a full-force transition toward Shedeur Sanders, the high-profile rookie with all eyes on him. But this isn't about Shedeur's talent. This isn't about Flacco's ceiling. This is about power, politics, and a franchise at war with itself. Weeks of internal conflict led up to this trade. Quiet arguments behind the scenes, tension building between ownership and the coaching staff, with one side demanding patience and process, and the other demanding headlines and heat. And when push came to shove, ownership didn't just win. They erased the board. Stefanski wanted Flacco. Ownership wanted Sanders. And ownership got what it wanted. Now the team has to deal with the aftermath. Flacco wasn't some placeholder. He was the glue guy. The calming presence in a locker room full of pressure, expectation, and history. He was the quarterback the veterans believed in. The guy who knew how to weather a playoff push, how to manage a game, how to lead. And now he's gone. Traded. Not just to another team, but to Cincinnati. This is where things turn from reckless to flat-out dangerous. The Bengals are in the same division. They're chasing the same playoff spots. They know every win, every point, every possession counts in the AFC North. And now, they've been handed a golden ticket. Flacco walks into their building with intimate knowledge of Cleveland's offense. He knows protections, terminology, cadence, signals, timing. He knows who struggles under pressure and who's prone to freelancing. The Bengals didn't just gain a backup, they gained a competitive edge. And Cleveland gave it to them. Meanwhile, the Browns are betting everything on a rookie quarterback. Not just any rookie, a media darling. Shedeur Sanders is talented. That's not in question. He's confident, composed, and carries himself like someone who was born to lead. But he's also raw. He hasn't played an NFL snap. And now he's being asked to carry a franchise that just kicked stability out the door. The coaching staff didn't ask for this. In fact, they fought against it. They wanted more time. They wanted a plan. They wanted to bring Sanders along the right way. But that vision was overridden. Jimmy Haslam made the call, and once he did, everything changed. Coaching autonomy? Gone. The chain of command? Fractured. Stefanski is now the face of a staff forced to execute a decision they didn't make. And that matters. It changes everything about how authority flows within a team. When players know that decisions come from above the head coach, it's not just a bad look, it's a leadership crisis. That crisis is already bleeding into the locker room. Veterans are asking questions, not just about who's under center, but about what kind of organization they're playing for. Because when a respected teammate like Flacco gets shown the door and the coaching staff loses its voice, it shakes the foundation. Players don't want chaos. They want clarity, consistency, leadership they can follow and believe in. Right now, they're not getting any of that. And to make things even more complicated, The fan base is completely split. Cleveland fans are some of the most passionate in football. They've endured it all: false starts, bad drafts, rotating quarterbacks, front office collapses. So when Flacco came in and brought a sense of calm, it felt like something was finally clicking. Now those same fans are being told to pivot. Get behind the rookie. Get behind the decision. Don't worry about how it happened. Just trust that it's for the best. But that trust has been shattered too many times to blindly follow the noise. Sure, there's excitement around Sanders. Of course there is. He brings a new energy, a new chapter. But it's not the energy itself that's the problem, it's the context. He's being installed into a team that didn't organically rally around him, that didn't get to see him win the job. That wasn't part of the process. And that creates risk, massive risk. Because when you fast-track a player, especially one with as much outside buzz as Sanders, every mistake gets magnified. Every interception becomes a headline. Every delay of game, every bad read, every awkward press conference moment becomes ammunition for critics who already think this was a disaster waiting to happen. Sanders isn't just trying to play quarterback. He's trying to justify a front office power move. That's not fair to him. But it's reality. The pressure is already there, and it's only going to get heavier. Meanwhile, the coaching staff is walking a tightrope. They have to coach this team to wins, knowing they've lost control of key decisions. They have to guide Sanders through a brutal AFC North schedule, knowing they weren't allowed to build the offense around him in the way they would have planned. And if things fall apart, who takes the blame? Not ownership. This trade has put Cleveland in a position where everything depends on how quickly Sanders can adapt, not just to NFL speed, but to an organization that's currently in crisis mode. If he struggles early, if the team stumbles, the noise gets deafening. And worse, the damage won't just be external. It'll spread internally. Players start checking out. Coaches start distancing themselves. Front office leaks start dripping into the media. And the Browns become exactly what they've spent the last 5 years trying not to be: unstable. This is the dangerous part of ownership overreach. It doesn't just disrupt the roster. It infects the identity of the team. The decision-making process becomes reactive. Strategic plans get tossed aside in favor of media wins. And a single personnel move spirals into something that affects everything, from player development to coaching retention to locker room trust. And that's the reality Cleveland faces right now. They didn't just trade Flacco. They traded clarity for confusion, control for chaos. They injected instability into a season that, despite its bumps, still had potential. Now that potential hinges entirely on whether Shedeur Sanders can not only perform, but perform under fire. Because the fire's already here. The national media is circling. Division rivals are smirking. And the fans? They're watching this unfold with a mix of dread, frustration, and cautious hope. They've seen this story before. And they're praying this one ends differently. So now we wait. Will Sanders rise above the chaos and bring stability to a team that desperately needs it? Or will this become yet another chapter in Cleveland's long-running saga of front office meddling and failed transitions? One way or another, the clock is ticking. Let us know what you think. Was this a gutsy decision with upside, or a catastrophic misstep that could derail everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to keep up with this saga in real time, make sure you're subscribed. Because whatever happens next, it won't be quiet. This is Cleveland. And this is only just beginning. This is Cleveland's most critical moment in years. And the crazy part? It's not about a playoff game or a last-minute drive or some devastating injury. It's about a power shift that has nothing to do with X's and O's, and everything to do with who's actually calling the shots in the building. This Joe Flacco trade wasn't just a personnel move. It was a declaration, a signal flare shot into the sky that ownership has taken full control of the quarterback position, and by extension, the entire direction of the franchise. And that means everything you thought you knew about how this team operates, it's out the window. Because when you're a head coach in the NFL, your job hinges on control. Your ability to game plan, motivate, adjust, and build chemistry. It only works if you're trusted to steer the ship. Kevin Stefanski just had that will ripped out of his hands. Publicly, Flacco's trade isn't just a betrayal of his tenure. It's a collapse of the traditional football hierarchy. The owner didn't just veto a quarterback decision. He rewrote the team's strategic identity mid-season. And that move won't go unnoticed. Not by other coaches. Not by players. Not by anyone who understands how fragile team dynamics really are. Let's talk about that locker room. It doesn't matter how talented your team is. If players don't believe in the system, if they sense disorganization at the top, if they feel like football decisions are being made for non-football reasons, it starts to fall apart. Quickly. And right now, that locker room has questions. Not about Shedeur Sanders personally, but about the process. The timing. The optics. The implications. Because when a guy like Flacco, someone respected, calm, and experienced, gets shown the door in the middle of a playoff chase, and the coaching staff isn't backing the decision, it tells players everything they need to know about the internal state of the team. And the message they're hearing loud and clear? Merit doesn't matter. Loyalty doesn't matter. What matters is whose voice gets heard at the top. This kind of shift sends ripples through every position group. Veteran leaders start to second-guess the direction. Young players wonder who to follow. Coordinators start protecting themselves instead of building the scheme. And the head coach? He's stuck being the public face of decisions he had no control over. It's not just uncomfortable, it's unsustainable. But let's be fair to Shedeur Sanders. He didn't create this mess. He didn't demand the job. He didn't leak anything or politic his way into the lineup. He's just doing what any young quarterback would do, keeping his head down, following a playbook, trying to prove himself. The problem is that he's being used as a symbol. He's not just stepping into a role, he's walking into the eye of a storm, with ownership pushing him forward as the future, the solution, the franchise face. And the pressure that comes with that? It's almost impossible to manage. Most rookie quarterbacks get a runway. They get time to make mistakes, learn the system, build rapport with the team. Sanders doesn't get that. Every move he makes is going to be overanalyzed, weaponized, and held up against the backdrop of the drama that got him here. And if he stumbles, the consequences won't fall on him alone. They'll fall on Stefanski, on the locker room, on the already fragile relationships between ownership and football staff. And if the Browns start losing, those cracks are going to split wide open. What's worse is that this entire move just handed Cincinnati a win before anyone even took the field. Flacco going to the Bengals? That's a strategic nightmare. You don't just lose a player, you lose intel. Scheme familiarity, tendencies, locker room vibes. He knows who Cleveland trusts on third downs. He knows which blitzes confuse the line. He knows how Stefanski adjusts in crunch time. The Bengals didn't just gain a QB, they gained a cheat sheet. And Cleveland gave it to them voluntarily. This wasn't some last-minute injury replacement. This wasn't about compensation value or clearing cap space. This was about clearing the deck for Sanders. That's it. That's the whole play. Trade away the old, install the new, and tell the fans to buckle up for a new era. Even if it costs you a real shot at competing this season. And look, maybe Sanders balls out. Maybe he shows up and silences every critic. Maybe he clicks with the offense, settles the noise, and becomes the star he's projected to be. But the reality is, that's not the most likely outcome when you throw a rookie into a hostile environment with zero margin for error. The Browns are asking him to carry the franchise and validate a front office coup in real time. That's not fair. That's reckless. And it's not just reckless for Sanders. It's reckless for the team's long-term development. Because now everything is reactive. Everything is immediate. If Sanders struggles, you can't bench him. You can't rotate him out. You've already burned the backup bridge. You already alienated the locker room once. There's no going back now. This is the bed Cleveland made, and they're locked into it for the rest of the season. Ownership influence, media pressure, fan division, a fractured coaching structure, a divided locker room, a rival who now has your playbook. and a rookie quarterback being handed the keys to a car that's already skidding sideways. Does this feel like a stable playoff team? And yet, that's what the Browns are supposed to be. A playoff team. Not a rebuild. Not a developmental year. This season was supposed to be about capitalizing on progress, about winning, stacking momentum, and silencing the ghosts of the past. Instead, they've invited the chaos back in. And the rest of the league? They're watching closely. Not just because the Browns are a divisional threat, but because this kind of ownership interference is becoming more common. And Cleveland just became the latest and most visible test case. The question every other franchise is asking right now is simple. Does this kind of top-down control actually work? Because if it doesn't, and if Cleveland spirals, then this becomes the new cautionary tale. Another reminder that star power and media heat can't replace structure, planning, and trust. And if it does somehow work, if Sanders thrives and the Browns win out, ownership gets to say they were right all along. But even then, it doesn't undo the damage that was done to the culture. Because winning games is one thing. Building a winning organization is another. So here we are. The Browns are standing at the edge, staring into the unknown. The old plan is gone. The coaching structure is compromised. The veteran voice has been silenced. And the rookie quarterback is being asked to carry more than just a team. He's carrying the credibility of an entire franchise. No pressure, right? If you're still trying to wrap your head around all of this, you're not alone. This is one of the most dramatic mid-season shifts we've seen in years. And whatever happens next, whether Cleveland thrives or implodes, you can be sure of one thing. Everyone will remember how it started. Just when you think it couldn't get messier, the stakes somehow rise even higher. Because what Cleveland's doing right now isn't just risky. It's exposing fault lines that may have been quietly forming for years. This is no longer about a quarterback competition. This is about a full-blown identity crisis. For years, the Browns have tried to shed the label of dysfunction. They've cycled through coaches, general managers, quarterbacks, every reset button imaginable, just to find some kind of stability. And finally, it seemed like they were on the cusp of something real. Not perfect, but steady. A competent team with a solid roster and a chance to fight their way through a tough AFC North. That illusion shattered the moment Joe Flacco was traded to the Bengals. Because again, it's not about who's better under center. It's about how this went down. There's no scenario where you trade away your in-season starting quarterback, someone who the players respect, someone who knows the system, someone who's won playoff games, and give that player to a division rival, unless there's something way bigger going on behind the scenes. And in this case, it's ownership. Jimmy Haslam didn't just insert himself into a quarterback debate. He ended it. Not with a collaborative decision, but with a directive. Shedeur Sanders was going to be the starter. Period. The coaching staff could either adjust or get out of the way. So now Kevin Stefanski is standing on the sideline, tasked with keeping this thing afloat while everyone knows the captain's will is upstairs. That's not leadership. That's theater. And no matter how professional these coaches are, no matter how well they posture in press conferences, the locker room isn't blind. Players talk. Assistants talk. They know what just happened. They know who made the call. And that undercuts the coaching staff's authority every time they step into a meeting room. How do you convince players to buy into your game plan when they know you couldn't even control the quarterback room? You can't build culture that way. You can't lead a team that way. And that's the part ownership never seems to understand when they blow past football ops to chase the next shiny thing. Shedeur Sanders is now under more pressure than any rookie quarterback in the league. And it has almost nothing to do with his actual play. He has to perform, yes. But he also has to justify a franchise-altering decision. One that not only disrupted a playoff chase, but potentially fractured the relationship between the locker room and the front office. If Sanders struggles, even slightly, the whispers turn into headlines. Was Flacco better for this team right now? Conversations don't just start, they dominate every media cycle. And if the losses pile up, that spotlight becomes a furnace. And remember, this was supposed to be a playoff team. We're not talking about a rebuilding squad throwing a rookie out there to see what happens. We're talking about a team that had real postseason aspirations. A team that, up until this week, was grinding its way through the AFC chaos and still in the hunt. Now, that vision's hanging by a thread. All it takes is one bad Sunday, one ugly stat line, one post-game presser that doesn't land right, and suddenly the whole narrative shifts. From bold move for the future to they blew it. And let's talk about the Bengals, because they're sitting pretty right now. They didn't have to dig through game film to prepare for Cleveland. They've got Joe Flacco in the room, someone who just spent weeks working inside the system they're about to face. This isn't theoretical. It's real. Cincinnati now knows how Cleveland installs its offense. They know where the pressure points are. They know the language, the rhythm, the preferred looks on third down. And they got all that for what? A day 3 draft pick? It's hard to even process how Cleveland justified that. And the worst part? They can't walk it back. This isn't a benching. It's a full transfer of power. You can't put Shedeur Sanders in the driver's seat and then pull him out after 2 losses without throwing your entire franchise into deeper chaos. Because what does that say? It says you not only forced the transition, you didn't even believe in it. So this is the path now. No matter what happens, through good games or bad, through rookie mistakes or flashes of brilliance, this is the version of the Browns we're living with for the rest of the season. Ownership-driven, coaching staff sidelined, and one young quarterback carrying the entire weight of a fractured power structure. That's not just hard. It's almost impossible. And yet this is where they are. A franchise at a crossroads, with everything on the line, not just this year's record, but next year's decisions, next season's staff, and the long-term trajectory of player development. Because what message does this send to the rest of the roster? To future draft picks? To free agents watching this unfold from afar? If you come to Cleveland, do you play for the coaching staff or for the owner? Because right now the answer isn't clear. And in the NFL, uncertainty is poison. Front offices and coaching staffs around the league are watching this unfold like it's a live case study. How long can a team survive when the structure breaks down? What happens when the football people are overruled by the business side? How far can marketability carry you before reality sets in? We're about to find out. Because this isn't just a test of Shedeur Sanders' talent. It's a test of Cleveland's entire organizational soul. Every snap he takes is a referendum on ownership, coaching, locker room cohesion, and everything in between. If he succeeds, it'll be in spite of the storm, not because of how this transition was handled. And if he doesn't, well, then you've just lit a match in a room full of gasoline. And nobody's going to walk away clean. So what now? The Browns still have games to play, a season to finish, a division to compete in. And somehow, they have to do all of that with the loudest circus in the league running in the background. If they find a way to win through it all, they might silence the noise for now. But if not, this trade won't just be remembered as a turning point. It'll be remembered as the moment the Browns imploded from the inside out. Sound off in the comments. Was this a visionary move or another entry in Cleveland's long list of organizational disasters? Hit subscribe if you're not already locked in, because trust us, this saga isn't slowing down anytime soon. The Browns lit the fuse. And now we all get to watch what happens next.